Okay, what we're going to show here today, first off, I want to put out a full disclaimer. We don't recommend doing this. This is just something that we have read about, discussed a lot, trying to figure out how it was that they was able to keep their guns able to fire back in the old West days when they was out getting wet all the time, maybe going through creeks and stuff on their horses and stuff, and they'd still go bang. And we'd read on the internet, well, it's been a while back, I've read where there was a treatise that was made, and I'm not sure if it was Sam and Colt himself or somebody else had made a treatise on his revolvers, his black powder revolvers. And in that, it stated that they had taken and dripped beeswax around the nipple, and whenever you sealed it up with a 454 round ball, that it makes a hermetic seal. You can drop it in a bucket of water and for hours at a time, and it would still go bang. So, full disclosure, we're just trying this to see if we can make that work. We don't recommend this. We are not going to take any responsibility if you try this on your own. This is just something that we're trying for ourselves, and we're sharing the results with you all just for informational purposes only. We do not recommend this in any way, shape, or form. So don't do this at home. All right, we're going to coat this with just a little bit of melted beeswax lube. This has got beeswax and Wonder Lube, or not Wonder Lube, but boar butter in this. This one's not wanting to go quite as good. We'll take it, seal it, and then get it back down in here. This one's not going to go, Robert. There it's going. Then the plan is we'll stick us, after we get them all done, we'll stick the cap down on this, and that should seal that off. The only time I can see where this wouldn't work is if it's in a real hot time. And then once we're done, we'll take and run our nipple pick down to clean the nipple out. Make sure everything's good and clear. Okay, now we've got everything all greased up inside there. This should give us grease all the way up to where when we cap our nipples off with our number 10 caps, they should have plenty of oil or lube around there to keep water from getting in that way. You want to be sure and take your nipple pick, clean your nipples out real good. I've already cleaned all these out. When I'm done, I put it up to the light, make sure that I've got plenty of daylight shining so that I know that my nipples are all open. And now we'll load this thing up. We're going to load 30 grains of black powder, triple F black powder. We're not using Pyrodex, we're using real black powder. Go-X, I've still got some Go-X left, so I'm using Go-X black powder, triple F equivalent, or triple F black powder. And we're going to just seed it with a 454 round ball. No grease on the end, no Wonder Wads or anything of that nature, because that's the way Sam Colt said to load his pistols back in the day. And we're just trying to figure out here if how they might have done this. We've read an article where it says that they was able to seal these off with beeswax and drop them in a bucket of water for 2 or 3 hours, and they'd still go off. And so we're trying to figure out if this is actually able to be done. So that's what we're testing here today. But once we get these all sealed up with our round balls, that should make a hermetic seal to where there should not be any water be able to get down past that round ball. Now, full disclosure, this does have. I did take a little reamer, chamfered reamer, and just hand chamfered these cylinders so that there's no burr on there. So I'm getting a perfectly round seal whenever my ball goes down. That is kind of a problem with, they get a burr on here in machining process, and if you don't do that, it leaves a little gap, and that's where you get your chain fires as well. So we're doing that to see if we're gonna get these all sealed up. Again, 30 grains of triple F black powder, 454 round ball, cap it off, and then we're gonna dump this in water for a couple hours, and then we'll take it and put it in the gun, and we'll see if it'll fire. So we'll get this thing all done. We'll put it in the bucket of water for about 2 hours or so, get the gun back together, and we'll show you test when we test fire it. Okay, got her capped off. You can see there's a little seal of grease around there. I got a little bit of, stuck that into some grease there. I'll have to get that cleaned out, but there's that end. No grease. I'm gonna get that little piece of grease there that I had it sitting here in this deal here when I put the caps on. That's got a little bit of grease on that end, but I'm gonna get ready to drop it in some water here, and for an hour or so we'll put her back together and see what happens. All right, this thing's been in for a little over an hour now. We're gonna take it out. You can see it's good and wet. We're gonna just dry it off just a little bit here, just so it doesn't get so nasty in my gun. We'll put it in the gun and we'll take it out and we'll test fire it.
You're on.
I'm on. All right. I was going to show you here. This is, you can see, hopefully you can see that in the light, the cylinder. Been an hour and a half in water. We'll see what it does. Proof's in the pudding. Okay, you can see from the videos that we took and sealed the nipples off by placing them in molten, or we melted our beeswax and boar butter. It was just some lube we had laying around here. That's what we used to make up some Wonder Wads here a while back. And I had some of it left over, and I just melted it down, and that's what we used to coat our nipples with. And then we screwed them back in, put a toothpick in there so that it didn't plug up the nipple. And then we run after we got them sealed off, or got them back in, screwed back into the cylinder, run my nipple pick down through there to clear the nipple out so that it would be open. And then we loaded it, capped it off, put it in a bucket of water for about an hour and a half, and we took it out there and we shot it, and it obviously worked. I ain't gonna say it's gonna work every time, but it worked that time for us. It's just one time. Again, we don't recommend doing this, but we've been trying to figure out if there was a way that they was able to do that back in the days, back whenever cap and ball revolvers was popular, and when that was the only thing they had. We know that they had a way of being able to do that to keep them to where they would, because their lives depended on them weapons, and they might be out in the wherever and go through water or whatever on a horse and get their gun wet, or get in a rainstorm and get their gun wet, and they had to be able to rely on their guns at the drop of a hat. And powder and lead was at a premium back then, so they didn't go around wasting it. Now you got to understand the reason that Sam Colt sent out a flyer with his guns whenever he sold them, and he said to load them with black powder, and he'd tell the grains. I forget exactly how many grains he said in his 44 caliber revolvers. Today we use 30 grains, which is a max load by today's standards with GoX. But and then he said, do not use a patch or any kind of wad to just seal the ball on top of it, and to use a 454 round ball. And there's pictures on the internet you can find of, if you want to Google it, you can find pictures of the instructions that he sent with his guns that states this. And he said that caused a hermetic seal, is what he called it. Basically, it sealed it off to where you wouldn't have chain fires or anything of that nature. Now, you got to understand and realize they did not depend on being able to shoot them guns like we do. You know, today we go out here, we shoot 100 times or 50 times or whatever. And so we use grease and lube and Wonder Wads to keep the fouling down so that they don't jam up on us when we're shooting. A lot of times, if I'm on a long session of shooting, I'll go ahead and clean my gun after about maybe three cycles. I'll go ahead and clean it. But they didn't have that opportunity because they was out there in the wilderness, and they might have come across a wild animal and have to use it, a wild cow, or get into a gunfight or whatever. And so they didn't. They carried multiple guns. They didn't have time to reload. The fight was already over by the time that was all said and done. So I think this is probably what maybe they actually done. Again, we read a treatise on this where they supposedly this is how they sealed off their weapons, and maybe we're onto something, maybe we're not. We don't recommend you do this, but we're just showing this for informational purposes. So this was our mileage. Your mileage may be different, so we don't recommend it. We sure don't. We don't recommend you do this. Don't do this at home. We're not going to take any responsibility if you try this because this was in a controlled environment the way we do it and the way we done it. We had full control of what we done. We can't control what anybody else does, so we're not going to tell you to go do this with anybody else. So have a good day.